Hello again and welcome to round 3 of the Dominion Online Championship hosted by ShuffleIT. So, looking at this board, a couple things jumped out to me. I wondered whether or not it was worth it to do something with Dungeon and Horde and Duplicate maybe to go after provinces very quickly. But then I saw there were colonies on the board and I decided to go after the thing that I thought initially, which is the Grand Market stack. So it is possible to trash down here with Count and play lots of Grand Markets and maybe a handful of Platinum. Maybe, ideally, anyway. So that is what my plan is going to be for this game. Get lots of Grand Markets and some Platinum, buy colonies, enjoy life. Now, I want to trash first, and I think the best way to get to trash in is with a dungeon and a silver opening to hopefully get to Count. Now, my opponent opens a little bit differently, dungeon and fishing village. Didn't want the fishing village, even though the virtual coin is useful for buying the grand market, because there, look, my opponent hit 4. Had the fishing village been a silver, that would have been a count for him. I might set him up on the next turn to get to 5, but it doesn't have to, and again he hits 4 here. So a bit of bad luck maybe for my opponent, but I think the silver is just a better card to get to 5, and it also helps with the purchase of the grand market. And I don't need the action straight away for anything, so I was pleased with that turn of events. It means I get my count in more quickly than my opponent. He still doesn't have one. And I consider a fishing village here just for the virtual coin because I have a count, I have a silver. One more virtual coin will get me up to Grand Market, but I really don't want to put the fishing village in the deck. There's no draw in the deck, and if there's no draw, you really want your stop cards to be as valuable as possible. So I think silver there is better than fishing village. And if I do want the actions later on, look, there's farming village, and farming village draws a card and is pretty useful in the end game, skipping past green cards. So I would much rather buy a farming village instead of a fishing village here. The second silver means that I do have enough money now with my count and the 2 silvers to pick up a grand market. So that is something that I will keep an eye out for. Had I drawn the count here, perhaps I would have gone after a grand market, although you could make an argument for trashing. 6 here, I did think about another dungeon because having a dungeon in play every turn is very, very nice for reliability. I go after the Banda Misfits instead, thinking that it is a bit more flexible. I can use it as either a dungeon or a farming village if need be. And if I have the money, I didn't really see anything else that I wanted to buy. My opponent has picked up a gold on 6, but I don't need the gold. Like I mentioned, I have all the money that I need for Grand Market, so I would much rather that gold be a platinum. You know what I mean? I'm trying as best as possible to maximize the the power of the stop cards in my deck here. So last trash of the coppers here with the count, and now it's very easy to line up my count with the 2 silvers to pick up our grand market. So with the gold my opponent bought, he's able to also get to grand market here. He also has a duplicate at this point. I know this is something that I thought about even at the beginning of the game. I top deck the dungeon here. That's probably not right. I probably should play it, considering that I just told you all I want to have a dungeon and play every turn. The deck is small enough at this point to where it probably doesn't matter, but it's still a good practice to just keep them rotating, right? A second gold for my opponent here. Now about this duplicate, the only useful thing really I thought for the duplicate was to pick up grand markets in the middle of the game like we're doing here. So he does have the duplicate, and if he's able to keep up with me in the grand market gaining, then he'll get a few more than me with the duplicate. So that is something that concerned me a bit. But after that, the duplicate kind of just sits on your mat because you're buying big cards like platinum and colonies and provinces. So be that as it may, I think it's still useful to get one, and I am gonna look for one soon enough. I don't quite have the money to pick up a duplicate here. I also don't have the actions to play both count and duplicate. So maybe a fishing village there was worth it, but I didn't want it at all. Stop cards thing again. Also dungeon there was definitely worth it because my idea with the Banda Misfits was that look, I could play it as a dungeon if I need to, but still having the 2 actual copies of the dungeon in the deck is a bit more reliable than having to use this Banda Misfits sometimes as the dungeon. Sometimes you would rather use it as a farming village, for instance, but you have to use it as a dungeon just to make sure everything runs smoothly. So I should have picked up a dungeon that I didn't because I erroneously thought, look, the Banda Misfits could do the work, but things don't always come in a nice order in your deck since you go through many iterations, and you would be forced into a position where you would have to use the Banda Misfits as a dungeon where you really didn't want to. Anyways, so I now have my duplicate. I am planning to hopefully here use my Banda Misfits as a farming village to play both duplicate and count, and as it turns out that doesn't happen. Platinum here for my opponent, so he's looking to make some movements here on the colonies, and I can't because my Banda Misfits is out there. So had I an actual dungeon, I would have the Banda Misfits in the deck, would have been able to play both the duplicate and the count here. As is, I am just going to play the duplicate here. I believe now the duplicate is more valuable than the count. The count could give me 3 coins, but the duplicate gives me a grand market. I don't think there's any contest here. So, grand market, and I think about a second duplicate. The only other reason for another duplicate is in the end. If you use your count to gain duchies, you could gain lots of duchies if you have lots of duplicates on your mat, so maybe that's something you want to do. Maybe. Again here, I feel like a dungeon is better than the duplicate, and then you could go after the duplicates for mass duchy gaining if that ever comes into the game. But I go for the second duplicate here, telling myself, look, you have the band, you'll have to use it as a farming village to get both duplicates on the mat. It doesn't end up happening. I have to use the band as a dungeon, which is not something I wanted. So slight misplays by me here in this game, and actually my opponent is going to resign in short order here. My play speed was not up to his liking, so he probably felt he was too far behind, and this would save some time by resigning. So that is how game 1 ends. A bit anticlimactic, but look, I'll take it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.